that you?
Who you got?
Weirdos all gonna have a name now.
Tobey? Andrew? Tom? Miles? Shamik, you did this to yourself.
A misunderstanding.
Now we gotta get ready for this new Spidey coming in after Holland's second trilogy. Spoiler, it's probably gonna be Miles. The top candidate to take over the mantle and headline the franchise in live action after the second MCU run, starting with the upcoming Spider-Man brand new day.
Sorry about that.
You're not one of my students, are you?
Marvel Studios and Sony are actively planning for Morales to enter the live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe after its successful animated trilogy concludes in 2027. After 24 long years, Marvel and Sony are still circling back and putting a heavy emphasis and ever reliance on the age-old web-slinger himself, Spider-Man.
Oh my! Tom Holland undercover in a Spider-Man competition, judged by his wife.
Boomers and Gen X got a classic, earnest, and emotionally weighty Tobey Maguire in the original Sam Raimi trilogy from 2002 to 2007. Millennials came back with a witty, athletic, and emotionally raw Andrew Garfield headlining the Amazing Spider-Man movies
Spider-Man. In my world, I don't carry an
from 2012 to 2014. Still, the audacity. Gen Z and Tom Holland brings our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man into the modern Marvel Cinematic Universe from 2016 to present, with a young and relatable portrayal. Miles Morales and Shamik Moore then brought a vibrant, stylized take focusing on legacy and showing the world that the Spider-Man mantle can cinematically transcend Peter Parker with the Spider-Verse films. After the continued ambivalence faced by fans throughout the last phase of the MCU, can you really blame them for heavily pivoting back to their main box office beat? A slew of mediocre cinematic and Disney Plus releases, unrecognizable.
Can't keep depending on these superheroes to swoop in and save our asses.
The Avengers are not walking through that door. We have no reliable
For some,
heroes.
from the golden age of domestic and international box office gargantuan in the past decades, and Kang the Conqueror are tossed in the trash. Still, unwise, since equating an undersaturated box office from uninspired non-Avengers films to mean a Kang dynasty not working at all was interesting.
Did you stretch? You a big stretcher? It's so good for you.
While all other releases from Phase 4 and 5 struggle to reach those billion-dollar quotas that Phase 3 had brought us, Spider-Man No Way Home still raked in a heavy $1.92 billion bag. And Deadpool and Wolverine
Say audio friends for me.
coming in at a not-so-close second 3 years later with $1.34 billion in revenue. After which was a downward spiral for Marvel, as we all know.
Open the door! I can't hear you over all the noble sacrifice! Why are you doing this? Because I'm Marvel Jesus!
Even if both of these drops were basically nostalgia-written releases meant to bring back classic characters and actors to the new generation, designed to haul in as much profit as possible. It still shows the continued dominance that Peter Parker, along with the rest of the Spideyverse, bring to modern pop culture. As the shifting portrayals from Maguire to Garfield, Holland, and Morales doesn't just show us the cyclical nature of Hollywood, but stands as a fascinating generational commentary on adolescence, trauma, and the nature of legacy. Returning to the big screen nearly 5 years after the world had last saw him demolished by the time wipe at the end of No Way Home, Holland is ready to steer Spider-Man into the future and ease the world into a life beyond Peter Parker. Tom stated to Empire for whoever's next, whether that is a Miles Morales or a Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman or something like that, I would love to be a part of setting up the next chapter. Whatever that looks like. I don't know. But if I could do what Downey did for me, then I would be so content swinging off into the sunset. Diving into places that the original MCU trilogy had hardly grazed over. Spider-Man Brand New Day marks the first time any Spider-Man star has gotten to lead 4 solo live-action Spidey movies. Tom Holland's Peter Parker is best understood not as a fully formed hero,
You're messing with things you don't understand.
but as a young man caught in a fragmented moral journey. Unlike Tobey Maguire's mythic, idealistic Spider-Man, or Andrew Garfield's more technologically relatable
Oh, I got Connors. I've already cured him once, so no big deal.
Holland's version stumbles through mentorships, failures,
What do I do? Aaron, give me an X-ray to the boat. Target on the strongest points.
and countless identity crises. Many of his first 3 films were more so defined by other major stars like Mysterio,
created Mysterio to give the world someone to believe in.
Nick Fury,
Just like you found it. So don't have Fitzsimmons go and make it
or
my
Tony Stark.
Well, it would buy us a little time.
Like we need
While Peter often struggled to make independent moral judgments himself. This era isn't rooted in internal conviction from the beginning, but a deep desire to be recognized as ready, while still lacking the full maturity and plot clarity to embody undeniable heroism. His story, even in the more recent No Way Home, reflects someone not yet knowing what kind of narrative he's truly a part of, or what kind of Spider-Man he needs to become. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially with the second trilogy able to stretch out the story and development for Peter to fully realize the MCU Spider-Man's potential. In many ways, Spider-Man acts as a cultural mirror, each saga reflecting the dominant societal anxieties and values of its era.
Thank you.
The Sam Raimi arc embodied post-tragedy resilience with Tobey Maguire at the center. These films act as a love letter to New York City, emphasizing community, standing up for one another, and the redemptive power of forgiveness. They tapped into the early 2000s need to believe that ordinary people could be heroes, and that we will rebuild stronger than before. Andrew Garfield with the Mark Webb era fell in the wake of the 2008 crisis, and public skepticism about massive tech conglomerates. Peter's primary adversaries here aren't just rogue goons, but corrupt corporations like Oscorp and secretive profit-driven scientists. The saga reflects a society questioning the ethics of unregulated technological advancement and corporate power. Tom Holland's MCU era marked a hyper-connected digital age and the rise of global social media pressures.
It's been a few weeks since the fiasco on the Statue of Liberty, and Spider-Man's cultists continue to contend that the vile vigilante is a hero.
With massive team-based superhero blockbusters surrounding him, this Peter wrestles with the anxiety of living up to the expectations of just about everybody. Struggling with public digital footprints, social media, and finding his own personal purpose in an overcrowded, chaotic world.
You've been in a fight before, but there's usually not this much talk.
Alright, sorry, my bad.
That thing is not obeying the laws of physics at all.
Kid, there's a lot going on here that you don't understand.
Stark said you say that.
So, just like the rest of us. Some critics have argued that the narrative of the MCU trilogy had felt haphazard at times, without a true purpose or plot angle like the previous two. But in reality, they perfectly mirror the lack of concurrent structure our current digital world has. Holland's Peter is the figurehead for many Gen Z fallacies. Handed responsibility without tradition, power without wisdom, and relationships without stability. He only begins to become the embodiment of good when he chooses to do so.
Sweet. Wait, tell me you see me again.
To embrace
My name's Peter
anonymity,
Parker, and you don't know me.
solitude, and responsibility without reward. Dragging to fruition the complex narrative that we've been craving for. Scottish-American philosopher Alistair MacIntyre argues this too, with his concept of moral fragmentation offering a lens to view Holland from. He argues that modern people lack coherent moral narratives themselves, and therefore struggle to act with virtue,
One sec.
knowingly
Can I help you?
or unknowingly alike.
My name is Peter Parker, and I would like a coffee, please.
Okay, no problem, Peter Parker.
Andrew Garfield's Peter, though still leaning into the everyman foundation of Maguire's Spidey, is still a very different hero. He's docile, raw, and most of all, deeply fractured. Presenting from the very start as a loner, but viewers quickly find out this outer shell is merely a mask for his profound longing to belong. These interactions pivot towards the emotional and psychological toll of loss. Where Peter often seeks refuge in sarcastic wit.
You know, in the future, if you're gonna steal cars, don't dress like a car thief, man. What are you a cop? Really? You seriously think I'm a cop? Cop in a skin-tight red and blue suit. You know, you've got a mind of a true scholar, sir. I was going to work for one of the guys who do the luge. Good thinking, good thinking. Get the window, get out the window. There you go, you got it. Whoa.
But suffers profound grief. Differing from Tobey's humble quirkiness, Garfield's Parker exhibits a sharp arrogance.
We good? We good?
Guess you just keep doing it until we find the real one.
Ouch.
No offense.
What's the thing on his hand?
Flying Peter.
Often acting far more impulsively, projecting his suffering onto others,
This might seem
and isolating himself even from those who love him the most. He's flawed in a very familiar way.
Hey, May. Yeah. Eggs? Organic, got it.
Emotionally guarded, intellectually reactive, and socially dissonant to most things. His identity crisis is less about morality and more so on purpose. He grieves not just the loss of his Uncle Ben, but the absence of any clear path to becoming whole again. Many fans and critics alike argue that Andrew is probably the most human out of all the Spideys. A man fumbling towards virtue rather than having it ingrained from the very start. His traumatized self is not hidden. It practically bleeds out with everything he does, even before he lost Gwen. In this interpretation, our mask is less of a shield from the world, but a desperate coping mechanism to balance an overwhelming sense of guilt and heartbreak. The Amazing Spider-Man era is about transformation. Andrew starts off with vengeance in his heart, methodically tracking down criminals not to save the city, but to soothe his own guilt. Though by the end of his second and final movie, Peter becomes something else entirely. A friendly neighbor, someone you could look to for comfort, and even a role model. His Spider-Man is widely expressive, cracking jokes every chance he gets.
Empire State. It's a better view.
That is a sweet view. Like breathing just happens.
Whoa. I want to fight an alien. I'm lame compared. Like I fought a Russian guy in a rhinoceros machine.
Hey, Max! I missed you, man!
Max.
Can we just talk for a second?
Moving like a dancer across the skyline and often inserting himself into human stories rather than just fighting crime. Progressively across the two movies, from the firefighter scene to the wind turbine sequence, show the audience a hero learning to not only be present, but vulnerable.
Turbine. You made this? No way. This is amazing. It's new, right? I'll walk you home. What's your name?
His relationships with villains aren't purely through hand-to-hand combat, but empathy, and at least attempting to understand how they came to be. Which is not to say Raimi or the MCU haven't done the same. Andrew's personal relationship with his big bads came across that more memorable, compared to, let's say, a Doc Ock or Green Goblin stealing the show. The evolution of Peter is palpable, no matter where you look in his two films. He's not a symbol of perfection, but of redemption. He doesn't start out as a hero, but inevitably grows into one, taking hits every step of the way, but still proceeding forward. The entirety of the Gwen Stacy arc philosophically parallels the ideas of German pastor and philosopher Dietrich Bonhoeffer, where costly grace applies powerfully. Grace for Peter doesn't mean an easy redemption at this point in the story, but a hard-fought, self-emptying journey. His redemption is not emotional relief, but renewed purpose and suffering. Philosophy would argue that Garfield Spidey is a character thrown into the ring of moral conflict, where his true identity is forged through social response. He doesn't start with virtue, but rather shaped by virtue itself over time. In doing so, Peter becomes more than a mask. He becomes a man worth becoming. The Sam Raimi era established the core literary archetype of Spider-Man as the burdened civilian. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker spends much of the trilogy grappling the words from his uncle as a heavy internal burden, embodying the struggle of working-class sacrifice where heroism demands personal isolation and the constant suppression of his own desires. Arguably the most tragic of all three portrayals simply for the mundane aspects of his daily life. That shit ain't pretty.
Could you pay me in advance?
You serious? Pay for what? Standing there? The planetarium tomorrow night, 8 o'clock.
The level of humility that our boy Tobey has across all three films is relentless, regardless of how often he's overlooked, betrayed, or rejected. He constantly chooses what's right over what's easy. There's a level of innocence to him that the other two live-action Spider-Men lack. It's not naivety, but a stubborn moral clarity of which refuses to be compromised even under excruciating pressures. He's mocked at school, ignored at work, misunderstood by the ones around him, and hunted down by the very city he's trying to protect, though bitterness never ensues. Tobey's Peter Parker almost resembles a deep Christian resilience, where resignation isn't a weakness, but rather strength under control. In the original films, Peter's pain is internalized, never projected onto others. He carries his grief with him like a biblical relic.
Jesus Christ!
The first era also exhibited the most contrast between Peter and Spider-Man. Maguire's Parker is quiet and self-sacrificial for those in his life, while his alter ego Spidey is heroic in a classical way, though in many other ways played out at this point by modern standards. Tobey embodied a proper moral order. He was fearless, righteous, and fundamentally good. Even his script embraced this.
This is my gift, my curse. Who am I?
Straightforward and noble. Again, an unwavering moral compass such as this in the modern age would most likely be faced with simplistic accusation. Though, especially with decades of nostalgia being farmed, lends itself to mythic clarity. Unlike the later trilogies, his battles aren't psychological chess games, but
nanotechnology. You've outdone yourself, Peter.
Physical parables. Each one reflecting the cost of choosing responsibility over self-interest. In a stoic lens, Peter Parker endures the chaos of life with calm, accepting that control is limited but virtue isn't. His goodness isn't reactive but habitual, a sort of moral formation, if you will. The people who once mocked him now carry him, showing us that virtue, even though slow and unseen, doesn't go unnoticed forever. As Spider-Man, Maguire is the neighborhood guardian who bleeds quietly behind the mask, but standing tall nonetheless. Regardless of if he's invincible or not, he's willing to be broken for others. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man isn't flashy. He's not loud, but truly faithful to the good within us all. Miles Morales and the rest of the Spider-Verse represents a definitive literary evolution for the character. Instead of the isolated origin story driven at times purely from guilt that we've all come to know and love, his narrative now focuses on secession and the democratization of the Spider-Man mantle, standing as a profound and resonant embodiment of the ideal that anyone can wear the mask. These animated films reinvigorates the broader concept of heroism, one that transcends the circumstance of merely one person, but to inspire collective imagination and confidence. In many ways, Miles' heroism is deeply rooted in existentialism, as his act of self-definition embraces responsibility not out of necessity or divine power, but from an exercise of autonomy and conscious choice. This time around, Spider-Man's mask emerges as a symbolic notion for boundless possibility and undying hope, reminding society that heroism isn't the foreground for exceptional or predestined power, but the potential of any individual willing to commit themselves to the greater good. American psychologist Carl Rogers, the father for person-centered psychotherapy and humanistic psychology, would argue this form of narrative elevates agency and self-actualization as the backbone for authentic living. Miles Morales' journey encapsulates the transformative ability that lies in the conscious embracing of an authentic, courageous existence. Other than the ability to finally pull off the Spider-Man meme, this multiverse of Spideys don't follow conventional pathways or hit every single canon event that Parker and many of our other classic Spider-Man were forced to endure. Miles and the rest of the Spider-Verse exemplify that individuals aren't constrained by preordained stories or universally determined purpose, but instead create their own essence through deliberate free choices. Where Tobey, Andrew, and Tom were forced to pick a binary choice when it came to their own trolley problems.
With the material, like with the trolley problem.
Let's try this.
Oh, God! Michael, what did you do?
I made the trolley problem real so we could see how the ethics would actually play out. There are 5 workers on this track and 1 over there. Here are the levers to switch the tracks. Take a choice.
The thing is, I mean, ethically speaking...
No time to make a decision!
Well, it's tricky. I mean, on the one hand, if you ascribe to a purely utilitarian worldview...
Miles' rejection of "I can do both" and refusing to sacrifice his father or the very universe shows a moral creativity that refuses to be constrained by cosmic dilemmas. His defiance against not only inconceivable odds, but literal universal frameworks encapsulates that hope is not merely an emotion garnered in our amygdalas, but an active resistant stance against despair, where love and courage serve to expand the realm of possibilities rather than diminishing it.
I'd be a pretty good mentor. Pull that off.
Now, I'm sure Beyond the Spider-Verse will undoubtedly affirm many of these same notions. Miles Morales shows us a vision of heroism not rooted in pain or predestined legacy, but in the irrevocable freedom to choose hope and personal responsibility in the face of overwhelming and often contradictory universal requests.
Our family doesn't run from things.
You're the best of all of us, Miles.
All in all, each incarnation of the Spider-Man story collectively demonstrate how Peter Parker, Miles Morales, or just about anyone nowadays can in some way adopt the mantle of hero. Shifting from the traditional self-sacrificing narrative of the early 2000s to the diverse legacy-driven futures of today. And somehow, one way or another, Nicolas Cage finds a way to get into the franchise. I'm not complaining though. Spider Noir is tough. I'll be so content just swimming into just swimming Peter Garfield. I sometimes wear designer clothes. I only went to the finest school, but I know I ain't no fool, baby. I may not be a star. I'm not driving the sickest car, but I know I can make you happy, baby. I don't know what you've been used to. Never been with a girl like you, but I can give you the love that's true to your heart, not material things. I'll give you my song, these words to you, sing you what I feel. My soul is true. I don't have the world, can't give it to you, girl, but all that I can do is give this song to you. Na 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 yeah yeah yeah. Na 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 yeah yeah. Yeah.